Personal responsibility is the turning point where intention becomes action and hope becomes direction. The moment a person stops blaming circumstances, waiting for perfect conditions, or depending on external motivation, a quiet but powerful shift occurs. Energy that was once spent on excuses becomes available for progress. Responsibility is not about pressure, it is about control. It is the understanding that while we cannot always choose what happens to us, we can always choose how we respond, what we learn, and what we do next. When individuals accept ownership of their time, they begin to see each hour as an investment rather than something to be spent carelessly. Mornings are no longer rushed reactions but intentional beginnings. Decisions become deliberate rather than accidental. This awareness creates momentum because clarity removes hesitation. A person who takes responsibility does not wait to feel ready, they act and become ready through action. This principle also reshapes how challenges are viewed. Difficulties are no longer seen as barriers imposed by life, but as situations inviting growth. Responsibility reframes problems into opportunities for skill development, patience, resilience, and creativity. Instead of asking, "Why is this happening to me?" the mindset shifts to, "What can I do with this?" That single change in perspective transforms helplessness into capability. Responsibility also strengthens self-respect. Every time a person follows through on a commitment, even a small one, they build trust with themselves. Confidence is not born from grand achievements, but from repeated evidence that one can rely on their own word. Over time, this internal trust becomes a stable foundation for larger goals. People who trust themselves move with certainty, and certainty fuels consistent effort. Another powerful aspect of responsibility is its ripple effect. When individuals govern their attitudes and actions, they influence their environment without force. Discipline becomes visible. Intentional living becomes contagious. Others begin to respond differently, not because they were asked to change, but because consistent responsibility naturally raises standards. Perhaps most importantly, personal responsibility eliminates waiting. It removes the need for ideal timing, external validation, or sudden inspiration. Progress begins immediately because ownership places the starting point within the individual, not outside them. Even small choices, waking earlier, learning something new, completing a planned task, become proof that change is accessible now, not someday. In essence, responsibility is empowerment in its most practical form. It is the decision to direct one's life rather than drift through it. Once a person embraces this principle, improvement stops being a distant possibility and becomes a daily practice. Momentum builds not from dramatic effort, but from the steady application of ownership in thought, behavior, and purpose. Extraordinary results rarely come from extraordinary beginnings. They emerge from ordinary actions performed with consistency and intention. Small daily disciplines work because they bypass the need for intense motivation and replace it with structure. When an action is simple enough to repeat and meaningful enough to matter, it quietly shapes character, capability, and confidence over time. Consistency is powerful because it compounds. A single day of effort may appear insignificant, but repeated effort accumulates like interest on an investment. Reading a few pages each day strengthens understanding. Practicing a skill for a short time daily refines ability. Choosing focus over distraction for 1 hour improves productivity. These actions seem modest in isolation, yet their combined effect transforms outcomes in ways that sudden bursts of effort cannot sustain. Small disciplines also reduce resistance. Grand ambitions often create hesitation because they appear overwhelming. A manageable habit invites participation rather than avoidance. When a person commits to a simple, repeatable action, the mind shifts from questioning whether something is possible to proving that it is. Progress becomes visible, and visible progress fuels persistence. Another important aspect of daily discipline is identity formation. Repeated behavior communicates a message to oneself. This is who I am becoming. A person who reads daily begins to see themselves as a learner. A person who follows through on commitments begins to see themselves as dependable. Over time, identity aligns with behavior, and behavior becomes easier to sustain because it reflects self-perception rather than external pressure. Small disciplines also create stability in uncertain environments. Circumstances may change, challenges may arise, and motivation may fluctuate, but structured habits provide continuity. They act as anchors that keep effort steady even when emotions vary. This stability allows progress to continue regardless of temporary setbacks. There is also a psychological advantage in measurable progress. Each completed habit provides immediate evidence of growth, reinforcing the belief that improvement is occurring. This reinforcement builds confidence not from speculation, but from experience. Confidence grounded in repeated action is resilient because it is supported by proof. Perhaps the most inspiring truth about small daily disciplines is their accessibility. They do not require exceptional talent, special conditions, or dramatic transformation. They require a decision to act consistently in alignment with one's goals. By focusing on what can be done today, individuals free themselves from the burden of perfection and instead commit to progress. Over time, these modest actions reshape results, reshape identity, and reshape direction. What begins as a simple practice evolves into a powerful force that moves a person steadily toward excellence, one disciplined step at a time. Self-reflection is the discipline that converts activity into advancement. Without reflection, effort may be sincere yet directionless, producing repetition instead of progress. When individuals pause to examine their actions, thoughts, and outcomes, they transform experience into instruction. Reflection asks not only what happened, but why it happened and how it can be improved. This process turns daily living into a continuous learning system. Honest evaluation requires courage because it replaces comfort with clarity. It invites individuals to acknowledge both strengths and shortcomings without distortion. This is not self-criticism, it is self-awareness. When a person observes their behavior objectively, patterns become visible. Productive habits can be strengthened, and unhelpful tendencies can be adjusted. Awareness creates choice, and choice creates change. Reflection also strengthens intentionality. Many actions are performed automatically, shaped by routine or reaction rather than purpose. By reviewing the day's decisions, individuals reconnect their behavior to their values and goals. They begin to see whether their actions align with what they claim to desire. This alignment is essential because progress depends not only on effort, but on directed effort. Another important benefit of reflection is emotional understanding. Experiences often carry lessons hidden beneath immediate reactions. By revisiting moments of frustration, success, hesitation, or confidence, individuals gain insight into their responses. They learn what triggers distraction, what encourages focus, and what environments support growth. Emotional awareness improves future decision-making because it reveals the internal factors influencing behavior. Reflection also enhances accountability. When a person reviews their day with sincerity, excuses lose influence. Responsibility becomes clearer because outcomes are examined through cause and effect. This clarity encourages ownership of both achievements and mistakes. Ownership, in turn, builds maturity and strengthens commitment to improvement. Consistent reflection cultivates wisdom over time. Experience alone does not guarantee learning, examined experience does. Each review adds perspective, and accumulated perspective sharpens judgment. Decisions become more informed, adjustments more precise, and progress more efficient. The individual moves forward not by chance, but by understanding. Equally important is the forward-looking nature of reflection. It is not merely a review of the past, but a preparation for the future. By identifying what worked and what did not, individuals design better actions for the next day. Improvement becomes intentional rather than accidental. The past is used not as a place of regret, but as a resource for refinement. Through this practice, growth becomes measurable and purposeful. Each day contributes not only to experience, but to insight. Over time, reflection transforms scattered effort into structured development, ensuring that every step taken becomes a step understood and every lesson learned becomes a lesson applied. Mindset acts as the internal compass that determines direction long before external results appear. While environments influence circumstances, interpretation of those circumstances determines response. Two individuals may face identical challenges, yet their outcomes differ because their perspectives differ. One sees limitation, the other sees possibility. This distinction begins not in the world around them, but in the thoughts they cultivate within. A purposeful mindset transforms reaction into intention. Instead of allowing external events to dictate emotional and behavioral responses, individuals choose how to interpret situations. This choice introduces stability. When a person governs their perspective, uncertainty loses much of its power to disrupt progress. Difficulties remain, but they no longer define direction. They become conditions to navigate rather than obstacles that determine destiny. Gratitude plays a central role in shaping this mindset. It redirects attention from what is absent to what is present, from limitation to resource. Gratitude does not deny hardship, it balances perception. By recognizing opportunities, abilities, and support that already exist, individuals cultivate resilience. This perspective generates motivation grounded in appreciation rather than dissatisfaction. Energy flows toward constructive action because focus is placed on possibility. Intentional thinking also influences decision-making. Thoughts guide choices, and choices guide results. When individuals consciously select beliefs that encourage growth, persistence, and responsibility, their actions align with progress. A mindset oriented toward learning interprets mistakes as instruction. A mindset oriented toward improvement views effort as investment. In this way, thinking becomes a strategic tool rather than a passive reaction. Another important dimension is self-direction. When mindset is intentional, individuals design their responses instead of defaulting to habit. They ask purposeful questions. What can be learned here? What action is available now? How can this situation be used for growth? These questions shift attention from circumstances beyond control to actions within control. This shift restores agency and encourages forward movement. Mindset also influences consistency. External motivation often fluctuates, but internal conviction sustains effort. When individuals believe that their actions matter and their growth is possible, they persist even when results are not immediate. This persistence is essential because meaningful change requires time and repetition. A constructive mindset supports endurance by providing reason and meaning to continued effort. Furthermore, environment itself begins to change when mindset changes. Perception shapes behavior, and behavior influences surroundings. Individuals who think with clarity and intention communicate differently, act differently, and respond differently. Opportunities that once went unnoticed become visible. Relationships strengthen through consistent attitude. The outer world gradually reflects the discipline established within. Ultimately, mindset determines whether life is experienced as something that happens to a person or something created by a person. By cultivating gratitude, intentional thought, and purposeful response, individuals move from passive participation to active direction. External conditions may vary, but internal orientation provides continuity. Through this inner alignment, direction becomes deliberate, progress becomes sustainable, and growth becomes a conscious choice rather than a random outcome. Sustained growth depends not only on what a person does, but on the emotional and moral posture they bring to those actions. Choosing gratitude alongside responsibility creates a powerful balance, appreciation for what exists and ownership of what must improve. Together, they prevent both complacency and discouragement, forming a mindset that is steady, constructive, and forward-moving. Gratitude sharpens awareness of value. When individuals regularly acknowledge what is working, their abilities, opportunities, relationships, and lessons learned, they strengthen motivation rooted in appreciation rather than lack. This perspective stabilizes effort because it replaces comparison and dissatisfaction with recognition and purpose. People who practice gratitude tend to protect what they value and invest more carefully in their time and energy. They act not from pressure, but from respect for the possibilities already present. Responsibility, on the other hand, channels that appreciation into action. It is the commitment to influence outcomes through choices, discipline, and persistence. When individuals accept responsibility, they no longer wait for improvement to arrive from outside circumstances. They become active participants in shaping their direction. Responsibility clarifies that progress is not a matter of luck, but of alignment between intention and behavior. The partnership of gratitude and responsibility also strengthens resilience. During setbacks, gratitude maintains perspective by reminding individuals that one difficulty does not define the whole experience. Responsibility then guides response by asking what can be learned, adjusted, or strengthened. Instead of being immobilized by disappointment, individuals remain engaged in improvement. This combination transforms adversity into instruction rather than defeat. Another important dimension is emotional balance. Gratitude reduces the tendency to dwell on what is missing, while responsibility prevents passive acceptance of unsatisfactory conditions. One encourages appreciation, the other demands progress. Together, they create a constructive tension that promotes steady development. A grateful, yet responsible person neither complains without acting nor acts without purpose. This approach also deepens personal integrity. When individuals acknowledge the good in their lives and commit to improving what is within their control, their actions reflect coherence between belief and behavior. They keep commitments, not merely because they must, but because they value the opportunity to grow. Integrity emerges as a natural outcome of consistent alignment between appreciation and effort. Over time, gratitude and responsibility cultivate a sense of empowerment that is both humble and confident. Humble because individuals recognize support, opportunity, and learning beyond themselves. Confident because they trust their capacity to respond, adapt, and improve. This balanced empowerment sustains long-term progress because it rests neither on external validation nor on fleeting emotion. Through daily acknowledgement of what is present and daily commitment to what can be improved, individuals create a pattern of living that is both appreciative and purposeful. In this pattern, growth is not forced but cultivated, and advancement becomes a continuous expression of awareness, ownership, and intentional action. Meaningful transformation is not the result of sudden inspiration, but the outcome of intentional living practice day by day. When personal responsibility guides action, small disciplines build momentum, reflection refines direction, mindset shapes perception, and gratitude strengthens purpose, growth becomes both structured and sustainable. These principles work together to shift life from reaction to design, from chance to choice. Progress then stops being a distant aspiration and becomes a lived experience, created through consistent awareness, deliberate effort, and a steady commitment to improvement. In this way, change is no longer something hoped for in the future, but something constructed in the present through the quiet power of daily decisions.